You want to set yourself apart from other people. Constant communication and feedback is so important. If you're not good at it, then find other people who are and bring them onto your team. Make sure you hire them, whatever you need to do. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, we've got the North Star Real Estate Conference coming April 24th and 25th in Minneapolis, and this conference is going to be for everyone. We're covering the gamut of real estate. If you are just beginning, this conference is for you. If you have 100, 200, 500 units, this conference is for you. If you want to get into commercial real estate, this conference is for you. And the best part about the North Star Real Estate Conference is the networking. The networking is phenomenal. We've got high performers there. We've got amazing speakers and amazing attendees that are going to be adding a ton of value to your business. We can't wait to see you there April 24th and 25th. Check it out. I'll see you there. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, and with me as always is Matt Jones. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Todd?
I am doing well as well. So, Matt, anything new in, what's going on, new discoveries, anything going on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, a few days ago, I finished another chapter in my book about single-family home investing, and it was really interesting how the strategy for single-family is similar to large multifamily, because you're looking for off-market value-add deals. Granted, with large multifamily, you have the economy of scale to make things more efficient, though.
Yeah. Somebody recently actually asked me, they were looking for small multifamily and single families, and they were asking, what they can do to find them. And I said, well, look, I'm not really in that market, but it's essentially the exact same as, multifamily. And here are some of the things you can do. And it was very similar. I think a lot of people, one thing they forget when they're looking at single families and small multifamilies is it's smart to work with a real estate agent that deals specifically in that type of property, or maybe several real estate agents, not necessarily just one, that deals in that specific property, that really understands the market. You're going to have a lot of better opportunity than if you just work with anybody or think you're going to do it all on your own and, just call the property listing broker every single time.
Yeah, it takes some skill to do that, certainly, but you're going to see more deals if you use an agent yourself.
Yep. Well, cool. So yeah, and for me, working right now on getting a deal, hopefully across the table, and we start raising for it and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's coming to fruition. It's crazy. It's already February. And so we're already 1/12 of the way through 2020. And if you're sitting here like me going, oh my gosh, it's already 1/12 of the way through, I need to get my butt in gear. Well, now's the time. Shake off the cobwebs or whatever you got going and start grooving, because it's soon going to be 1/6 and then 1/4 and then 1/2 before we know it. And you want to make sure you're getting the things done you set out to achieve in 2020 and beyond. So for me, it's all about really trying to get deal flow coming across the table. And that's something I've been doubling down on and really focusing on is communicating with brokers, communicating with potential partners, communicating with property owners or appraisers, mortgage brokers, property managers, all kinds of people, and we're really trying to dig in and get deals that you might not otherwise have had the opportunity for. So just that's for me, doubling down, and then doubling down on my kind of my coaching and my mastermind stuff that I've been doing. And I want to really increase that and provide a lot of good information for those who want it.
So with your communication with your investors and potential partners, how do you keep organized with all that?
Yeah, and that can be definitely challenging. I think it starts with a good organizational system of who's on your kind of lists, right? So we have to make a list, and you're going to have several different lists. For me, I've got properties that are actively have investors in them. So obviously, I need a specific list for each of the properties. So we have an online portal, and our portal, then we can specify what properties each investor is in. um, we and then I always have a backup. We always have a backup on Excel spreadsheet for all of our investors on each property that we put into a property file. So that's really important for current active deals. For future or potential investors, we put them all into Mailchimp. That allows us to track. And then we also have our portal too, where people can register through our portal and get good information in there as well. So a couple different ways to make sure people are signed up with us, and make sure we get them the information they need. Um, and that's super important. And you mentioned communication, and that's kind of what I want to hit on today, and the value of communication, and making sure we're actually letting our potential investors know what's going on.
Sure. And how important is that client relationship management software or the CRM when it comes to having good communication with your people?
Yeah, I obviously it's super helpful because it simplifies things, right? And so just having something, I think it's more, a lot of people get caught up into like what the right CRM is, and maybe there's a right and wrong and best and worse. But for me, it's all about actually utilizing something that you can get comfortable with, and you're actually going to use, and can track it, I think, the way you need it to be tracked. So for me, look, I'm sure there's something better than what I use, but Mailchimp has been very successful for me. It allows me to, put a tag onto somebody if they're an investor, if they're a potential coaching client, or maybe a coaching client, if they're a potential loan sponsor, if they're whatever. So I can put different tags on them to separate them. And then from there, it also allows me to get a lot of information about them. And it allows me, and this is really important for investors, it allows me to know exactly when they're added to the system, which when I add them to the system, that's typically our first conversation, at least for new investors. For people that I've known for years, that might be a different date, but at least allows me to timestamp it. That way, if we ever did get audited by the SEC, if for some reason they wanted to find out who our investors were, and there was any question as to, well, are these investors that you had a pre-existing relationship with, we can say, well, look, here's their first date that they invested, and here's when we first connected with them, and here's the email chains that we've had, all that kind of stuff. So we can easily track those conversations through whatever CRM we use. So I think those are several reasons why it's so important to have a good CRM. And I can schedule emails. We can send out mass emails really easily. People can unsubscribe if they are no longer interested. It's just you're doing it the right way too.
Sure. And what kind of things do you communicate with your investors?
Yeah, so I try to send out quarterly emails, and I think I'm going to increase my frequency on that. But it's just kind of communicating with what's going on in the business overall, communicating with what's going on in multifamily overall, what's going on with real estate, with the economy, how that's relating together. Um, and then maybe some education on something I liked, and usually that's the same type of thing. It's real estate or the economy or maybe mindset, what I think my investors might enjoy learning about. And really, that's about it. So I try to provide several different, several just different things for them to be able to click on and read. And sometimes it's blogs that I wrote, sometimes it's blogs that I read, or articles, data points. sometimes it's a link to my podcast, sometimes it's a link to somebody else's podcast, Audible book, whatever it might be. So just try to provide education and information. Um, and that, again, that can cover my butt when, or if I should say, if something ever happened where I've got to explain who my investors are and whether they're qualified or not. And look, I want my investors to be qualified, and part of that is education. And so if I've done my job properly educating them, well, there's a lot better opportunity that I can say, look, they did understand the investment that they got into. And truly, I do want everybody to understand the investment they're getting into, right? I don't want you to be just investing blindly.
Sure. And you mentioned that you've been communicating quarterly, and you're looking for communicating more often. How often is the right amount to communicate with your investors?
Well, so there's different. When you're saying investors, I'm assuming you mean a current investor who's on currently
Yep.
investing my
Mm-hmm. Yep.
property. That is not a quarterly communication. What I meant by quarterly is any potential investor, anybody who's on my email list. So I've got a lot of people on my email list that want to communicate with me or want me to communicate with them for whatever reason. It might be because of my investments. It might just be purely for education. Maybe they're are planning on doing what I do and just want the communication, want they like what I send. And as far as education wise goes, maybe they're just interested in what I do. So who knows why they're on my list? Sometimes I just get people that get onto my email list. There's different ways you can sign up for my email list. If you go onto my right now, if you went onto my website, you could send us an email and you'd be on our email list. You could also go download our free ebook that we have on our website. Which, by the way, for those who are listening, go onto the website and download that free ebook. It's really great information. Anyways, it's just about who wants to be on that, and so that's what I do quarterly. I like to do it monthly. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer with how often you do it. It's just about timing, and right now I still actually produce those emails because I like to personalize it. I may have somebody start producing them and just add my personalized touch to each email at the beginning, which I like to do. As far as like communication with active investors on a property, monthly is what I like to do. And for the most part, I'm pretty good at it. Sometimes I get a little bit behind. Right recently, I actually went through a property management change, which we talked about on this what was that, maybe like 6 or so episodes ago. And with that, there's been some challenges with getting the financial statements from the new property management company and mainly from the old property management company. So the old property management company just recently, I mean a couple days ago, finally got us our statements that we were looking for in a format that we could actually you know actually do something with. And so the communication has been a little lacking with my investors because of some of that. So again, I try to do my best to communicate well and communicate monthly, but you know, there's been challenges at times, and that's really not an excuse. I mean, I should be on the ball, making sure that communication is happening really well. But that's important. And one of the reasons why I wanted to say this too, or to talk about this too, is because I've had a few times recently people say, hey, thanks for the communication. I've invested in other deals and I don't get nearly the communication that you're providing. And it's, maybe that makes me want to pat myself on the back, but it actually makes me want to tell people out there, look, if you have investors, you need to be clear. You need to be telling them what's going on. In each email that I provide to my investors, I try to say the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I try to say it kind of like that. Here's the good, here's the positives of what's happening with the property, and where we're going, and here's some of the negatives that have happened. And you need to say all that, because if they only hear the good, which is what we all want to talk about, right? then they'll finally eventually figure it out, right? They're going to figure it's going to come to a head. And when it does, and they go, well, you could have told me about that 6, 8, 10 months ago, they're going to be pissed, right? Where if you've just been communicating about it all along, are they going to be excited and happy and jumping for joy because there's problems? No, but they're going to understand those problems and they're going to be aware of them and understand that you're doing something to try to solve those problems. So that's the most important part, especially with communicating regularly, that you tell people what's up, what's going on. And then the other thing is I do financials, and I do that on a quarterly basis. So monthly communication with quarterly financial updates as well.
Hey, we've got the North Star Real Estate Conference coming April 24th and 25th in Minneapolis, and this conference is going to be for everyone. We're covering the gamut of real estate. If you are just beginning, this conference is for you. If you have 100, 200, 500 units, this conference is for you. If you want to get into commercial real estate, this conference is for you. And the best part about the North Star Real Estate Conference is the networking. The networking is phenomenal. We've got high performers there. We've got amazing speakers and amazing attendees that are going to be adding a ton of value to your business. We can't wait to see you there April 24th and 25th. Check it out. I'll see you there.
And then look, if there's something big, really big, you may want to communicate even more. So I might do an email in the middle. Like we just recently had a fire. Now it worked out well to when the fire happened, and we had some communication with the insurance company and with the property manager and so on. It was actually worked out well to where it did fall in line with my monthly email. But had it happened like a day after I sent my monthly email out, I would have sent another email out after, we had that kind of closure and communication. And so I could then communicate to my investors.
And when you say communicate, it sounds like you're primarily doing email communications.
Yeah.
Do you ever do phone or snail mail letters or?
Look, I mean, phone would be, I'm always open for a phone call. So if somebody wanted to set up a phone call with me or just call me, that was one of my active investors. Yeah, absolutely. Like I want to communicate with them. So if they have any questions, even if they just need help with something, I'm definitely more than happy to jump on a call. I mean, they're super important, obviously, to the existence of my company, and for my company to be able to continue to expand and grow. And I want them to be happy. I want them to be comfortable. And so, yeah, if it's a phone call, absolutely. But though I don't communicate like that on a monthly basis to them, that would just be too challenging to make all those phone calls. And same thing with a potential investor. With a potential investor, they have that initial contact. They reach out to me. Typically, they reach out to me for some reason, whether they heard me talking at a conference or at a meetup, or whether they heard my podcast or me on anybody else's podcast, whatever it is. They reach out to me, and then we have a one-on-one conversation, phone conversation. I always try to make sure I have a call with anybody. So if anybody's listening to this and they want to invest with me, maybe they think they're on my investor list, but we haven't had a phone call. That's what I would like to do, is just have a phone call, because I want to talk to them about, what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. And I want to make sure they know what we're trying to achieve and all that kind of stuff. So that's really important. And then, if you're a potential investor and you need to talk, or you want an update or whatever, I'm happy to do a phone call again on that. So, I just don't have time in the day, obviously, to be having investor phone calls constantly, but that's never the case. I mean, every once in a while I have an investor that, we had a first conversation and they want to have another conversation, and I'm happy to do that.
So the main purpose of the phone calls is as needed basis, but also in the beginning when you're really getting to know potential investors, to make sure your focus really aligns with them. But then email is really good to suffice for the other times.
Yeah, I think that phone conversation, in my opinion, is a must. I think you have to have that conversation with somebody, and I think that's so valuable, that I just wouldn't build a relationship just through email and you know chats alone. I would want that conversation. And of course, I've got this podcast, and that's a way for people to not necessarily communicate with me because obviously it's one sided. I'm doing all the talking, but for them to understand what's going on in my business, for them to understand, some of my philosophies and thoughts and all that kind of stuff. So that's another line of communication as well as my podcast, quite frankly. I mean, I do it to help other people and to educate them. But I also do it for selfish reasons. It helps me build relationships with other people.
And do you find people reach out to you through
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
the podcast?
Yeah, yeah. I would say a lot of people hear me on maybe another podcast, and then will follow me on my podcast. I mean, I've had investors look that have been listening to my podcast for a year or two, and they finally reach out after listening to me for a year or two, and they go, "Hey, I've heard a bunch of your podcasts and really like what you have to say, and whatever." And that's the power of communicating. And again, I mean, it's like I said, it's one-sided communication, but they feel like we've already had a full conversation already because they know so much about my kind of investment strategies and all that kind of stuff. Even though that's not what I solely talk about, it still comes out. I mean, you can't have a podcast and have not your thoughts and feelings come out. It's just how it goes.
What advice do you have for new investors that are trying to build their own investor databases themselves to make sure they're having good communication with their potential investors?
Yeah, I think it comes down to what we've already talked about already, Matt. I mean, it comes down to having a system in place that you're going to follow, having a CRM, choosing whatever is best for you. And again, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I don't think there's a best thing. Mailchimp maybe isn't the best, but that's just what I use and I'm comfortable with. So having that in place and then it's just clear communication. Look, I'm talking with somebody right now who I shouldn't say I'm talking about talking to somebody right now, but I'm hearing about somebody right now that I know that is not communicating clearly with others, and it's just not good. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but it's just not good. You're hearing that, and I wish the best for the person, and they need to communicate better because people get upset when they don't have that clear communication. It doesn't matter whether it's your investor, whether it's a broker or property manager or whoever, lender, whoever. You're buying a property from somebody. It's all about that communication. People want to know what's going on. Like, don't hide things. It just makes it worse.
People appreciate that clear, consistent, and honest communication.
That, and you just hit it right on the head. It's the honesty part too. I mean, people want the honesty. It maybe hurts a little bit, maybe sucks a little bit because you're going, oh crap, this is the third month in a row we've got another email and there's something else negative going on with this property. But that's better than these positive emails and then finding out, like I said, like 6, 8, 10, whatever months down the road that this has been going. You mean this has been going on that whole time and you haven't told us? Oh, well, I didn't want you to worry about it. No, no. Now I'm not worried anymore. Now I'm just pissed. Now I'm mad. Now, you know, I don't want to be in this investment anymore. And now we've got problems.
And what's your interest in investing with that person again?
Right. It's just not going to be there. I mean, like you said, I do my best. I can't say I'm perfect. I'm sure I'm not. I can continue to improve on it. And I try to think of different ways where I can continue to improve on it and just stay on top of it. And that's always important. You always want to make sure you continue to adjust and continue to get better at, what your business is representing and who you are.
Awesome.
Anything else, Matt?
No, I think that's really good. I just want to say the free book that you mentioned is on venturedproperties.com.
Yeah. Venture D Properties. It's just, look, it's not really a book. I would say it's more of an article or whatever, but it's just something that people can read. It talks about multifamily, why I really like multifamily, and it talks about syndication and the ins and outs syndication, a lot about communicating with investors and stuff like that. So I think it's good information. Anybody that's interested in multifamily or syndication or both, provide some good information for them to look at, read. Got some data points on there, all kinds of good stuff. So
Very cool.
one thing, and I already kind of covered this, but again, it's communication. It's not, we've been kind of talking more about investors, but it's about communicating with everybody. And that's so important. You want to set yourself apart from other people. Constant communication and feedback is so important. If you're not good at it, then find other people who are and bring them onto your team. Make sure you hire them, whatever you need to do. Constant communication is so important. Awesome, Matt. Well, that's all I got. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day a Saturday.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.